Do we have a quorum?
Mr. Chair, you do have a quorum. Mr. Chair, you do have a quorum.
And
All
council.
right. Thank you very much. So good morning, everyone. My name is Ryan Clem. I'm Deputy Chief of Staff for Lieutenant Governor Suzanne Crouch in her place today. I'm calling to order the November 2023 meeting of the IHCDA Board of Directors. We are meeting pursuant to this board's policy for participation by members of the IHCDA Board of Directors in board meetings by simultaneous electronic communication. This means that only 3 members must be physically present at the site of the meeting, and the remaining members may call in. There will be an audio feed for the general public so that members of the public can listen to the meeting, and there will be a link to the video recording posted on IHCDA's website next month. At the time of motions are being made, each board member that makes a motion must state his or her first and last name for the record. The votes will then be tallied by roll call. Well, I'll take a roll call of the board members to confirm members who are present and their locations. Mark Pascarella.
Present in Indianapolis.
Michael Neal.
Present, Indianapolis.
Andy Place.
Present remotely.
Michael Schottmeyer.
Present, Indianapolis.
Tom McGowan. No, and chair is present, so we do have a quorum. Okay, first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from September 28th, 2023 board meeting. Board, any questions regarding meetings from last meeting? And if none, may I have a motion to approve?
Mark Pascarella, move to approve.
Andy Place, second.
All right. Mr. Pascarella? To approve. Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Andy Place?
Yes.
Mike Schottmeyer?
Yes.
And the chair votes aye. And so passes unanimously. Hearing no one opposed, passes unanimously. Next up, please welcome Matt Rayburn, who will present the 2024 9% low income housing tax credit board memo.
Thank you, board. Good morning. Excited today to be here to present a number of recommendations. It's going to be a historic day for IHCDA. We'll talk more about that in a moment, but lots of funding coming for the creation and preservation of affordable rental housing today. We'll start with the annual 9% tax credit round. And as we usually do, we will do this through a PowerPoint presentation so that we can quickly go through the process of the round, but then also highlight all of the developments that we are recommending funding for today. All right, so to start, we'll go over how many credits we had available for this particular round. The calculation for the availability of credits is based on the IRS's annual estimate of the state's population times what they call a per capita multiplier. So for 2024, we just learned from the IRS very recently. Fortunately, we had a nice increase this year up to $2.90 per person, up from $2.75. So that gets us to $19.96 million of new 2024 tax credits for us to allocate. We also have 1.2 million coming back to us. This was a combination of a few, just a little bit of credits we were not able to use in the last round, but most of this was from one 2023 development that was actually not able to move forward after we had awarded them credits. So we have 1.2 million to move forward of the 23 credits, which got us to a total of $21.2 million of credits available to fund in this round. So with this round, we received 35 applications for the competitive round, and those 35 applications were requesting an aggregate of $40 million in tax credits. So about 2 times as many as were requested. And as you'll see when we get to the recommendation, we are able to fund right at about half of these applications. So right in line with the amount of credits we had versus the credits requested. Also, developers are allowed to request a variety of gap funding sources. So the tax credits that are awarded, which they then sell to investors to generate equity, is never enough on their own to fully fund a development. So there's a number of gap sources that may be needed. You'll see from the IHCDA side, 3 types of gap sources were requested in this round. Loans through the federal home program, we have requests for $4.7 million. Loans through the State Development Fund program, requests for $21.2 million through that source. And then we use Housing Trust Fund grants specifically for the development of supportive housing for persons experiencing homelessness. That is a HUD resource. And we have requests for $5.9 million in that funding source. And then finally, we had a request, one development was requesting a 9-unit Section 811 project rental assistance contract. And we'll have a separate memo later today to explain that program. So what will we be recommending? And again, we'll have a slide for each development here in a moment, but we are recommending in aggregate today the approval of 17 of the 35 applications, totaling 19 million in credits. Now you will see that is not the full 21 million. We do hold back 10% of our credits each year for a separate special round. So that's about $2 million we're leaving on the table is to fund that special round, which will come to the board later. We are recommending today $2 million of home funds in the form of loans as GAP, 10.7 million in development fund loans as GAP, $2.9 million in Housing Trust Fund grants for supportive housing, and we are recommending those 9 units of Section 811 rental assistance. So a little bit about the process before we reveal the developments. The start of this round really goes back to this spring. So in the spring of 2023, we were meeting with developers to answer questions, provide technical assistance, and that included debriefing with developers from last year's round who were unsuccessful in being funded through 2023 credits, because we know a number of them wanted to clean up their applications and reapply. So we did about 2 to 3 months of technical assistance meetings, either with returning or new developers. Then in July, notices of intent to apply were due to us. Those are due at least 30 days before the application deadline. That gives us an idea of kind of the size of the round ahead and allows us to start conducting capital needs assessment on rehab projects. The applications then came into us July 31st. So that's when those 35 applications came in. We then spent really not much in July, obviously, with the applications coming in July 31st, but mainly August, September, October, 3 intensive months of group reviews from our team, starting with doing what we call the threshold review. So that is ensuring that these developments meet the federal requirements to be eligible for the program, as well as our state imposed requirements, underwriting both the financial sustainability of this specific development, as well as the financial capacity of the developer proposing the application, looking at the market study to determine that there is demand for the housing in the community, and then from there moving into the scoring and ranking the applications against each other. Along the way, you'll see here then that kind of throughout August and September, we had back and forth clarifications with the developers, allowing them some time to clean up any mistakes they may have made or to contest our initial scoring. So there was about 2 months of the back and forth as established in our qualified allocation plan process. I'm not going to go through all these names, just wanted to highlight here that this is very much an intensive group effort among my team. I'm very proud of the real estate team for the work they do on these rounds. I would just ask the real estate staff who are in the room that were part of the round to please stand and just kind of wave and be recognized. But this group represents a number of directors, of analyst staff who review and score applications, of our underwriters who do the financial analysis. So it really is a big team effort. Basically the last 3 months, this group up here has been spending a lot of time together in rooms doing group scoring and did so with a lot of professionalism. All right, so without further ado, and I know our developers in the room are tired of me talking about who worked on it. They just want to know who got funded. So we will go through this. As usual, what we'll present here is in alphabetical order by development name. The order on the slides does not necessarily reflect any order of score or anything, but we will now walk through the 17 developments receiving funding or being recommended for funding today. First up is 515 East. This is a multifamily new construction development in the city of Elkhart, being awarded to Legacy 25 Inc. as the developer, and this is being awarded out of our small city set aside. Second up is Ashton Acres in New Pal. This is an age-restricted new construction development being undertaken by Keller Development, funded out of the rural set aside. Next is Aspen Meadows in the city of Salem, a multifamily rehabilitation development being undertaken by Hoosier Uplands, funded out of the rural set aside. Big Sunny Knolls, an age-restricted rehabilitation development in the city of Winchester, being undertaken by Biggs Development. This is also in the rural set aside. Okay, slides to return. We got skipped. Okay, excellent. Next up is Bridges Townhomes. This is an Indianapolis new construction supportive housing for persons experiencing homelessness, developed by Inglewood Community Development Corporation, funded out of our Housing First supportive housing set aside. Cotton Mill Apartments in Camilton is a multifamily rehabilitation. This is by Lincoln Hills Development Corporation and funded through the preservation set aside to preserve existing affordable housing. Next up is Country Villa Apartments in West Lafayette. This is a rehab of an existing multifamily project undertaken by Brickwell Partners, funded through the preservation set aside. So this is another preservation of an existing affordable housing development. Next, Grand Meridian, located in Indianapolis. This is a multifamily development, a historic rehab adaptive reuse of an existing building, converting it into housing. The developer is TWG, and this was funded through the large cities. Heritage Landing in Terre Haute, a new construction development that will be age restricted, developed by Jonesboro Investment Corporation, funded through the small city set aside. House of Core in Bloomington, a partial new construction, partial adaptive reuse of an existing building. This will be supportive housing for persons experiencing homelessness in Bloomington, developed by Brinshore, funded through our Housing First set aside for supportive housing. Landon Point in New Haven, a multifamily new construction by Bright Point, funded through the not-for-profit set aside. North Point in South Bend, a new construction multifamily development. The developer is Advantix Development Corporation. This is through the community integration set aside. That is our set aside where 20 to 25% of the units will be dedicated for persons with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Richardson Townhomes in Indianapolis, a multifamily new construction development. Wodo Cooper Development is the developer, and this is through the large city set aside. Snowy Owl Commons in Lafayette, a 50-unit age-restricted new construction development by Area 4 Development. They are the area agency on aging in that area, funded through the non-for-profit set aside. Next up is Sycamore Springs in the city of Kokomo, a multifamily new construction development by Advantix Development Corporation, another community integration set aside. So again, that would be for 20 to 25% of the units for persons with intellectual developmental disabilities. That gets us to the Jeffersonian in Lafayette. This is a restricted new construction development by Lafayette Neighborhood Housing Services, Inc., a local nonprofit, so funded through the non-for-profit set aside. The Sterling in Elkhart, a multifamily new construction development by Advantix Development Corporation out of the small city set aside. And that gets us through the 17 developments. So we now have before you the round recommendation map showing the distribution across the state. I think IHCDA staff is relatively pleased with this distribution, showing kind of spanning from north to south here, a decent distribution of the 17 developments across the state. So I will pause here and see if the board has any comments or questions on the presentation, after which I will read the formal resolutions.
All right, any questions from the board? If not, Matt, we're ready for the resolution.
All right, thank you, Ryan. Staff respectfully requests the board approve the following resolution. Resolved that the board approve the following: an aggregate award of low-income housing tax credits in the amount of $19,033,160, an aggregate award of development fund in the amount of $10,750,000, an aggregate award of home funds in the amount of $2 million, and an aggregate award of housing trust fund in the amount of $2,970,600 to the 17 developments listed in Table A, as more particularly described in the development summary sheets as recommended by staff.
Okay, board, we have a resolution before us. I'll entertain a motion.
Andy Place, motion for approval.
Okay, Andy, thanks. Second?
Mike Neal, second.
Neil, second, thank you. I'll take a roll call. Mr. Pascarella,
Aye.
Mike Neal,
Aye.
Andy Place,
Aye.
Michael Schottmeyer,
Aye.
Tom McGowan. No, and chair votes aye. Hearing no opposed, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Matt.
Excellent, thank you.
And I believe you're up next
Yes, I will be
again.
for a while today. Yes, thank you.
So Matt will now present the 2023 bonds, annual workforce housing tax credits, 4% low-income housing tax credit round board memo.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, I'm done with all of that presentation. All right, so before we dive into the presentation, just wanted to lay a little bit of background here to refresh the board. So as you may recall, up until about July of 2022, the 4% low-income housing tax credit in tax-exempt bond program was run by IHCDA as a non-competitive rolling round. Developers could apply at any time. And the reason we had historically done that was that prior to last summer, we had never run out of our available bond volume. As we headed into summer of 2022, we had seen a large increase in interest on the bond program, and we realized that the bond volume was drying up. In addition to the fact that we were running out of available bond volume, through the 2022 legislative session, the General Assembly passed a new state tax credit. And per that state code language, the state tax credits must be awarded in conjunction with 4% federal tax credits and with tax exempt bonds. So IHCDA found itself in a situation early last summer to say that the bond volume is drying up, and we know that we have to have it available going forward to fund in conjunction with these new state tax credits. So last summer, we made the tough decision to shut off the pool of bond volume and the availability to apply first come, first serve. And we said, we're gonna have to reassess this and move towards a competitive round to allocate the bonds, similar to how we allocate the 9% tax credits. So this is the first year that we have done a competitive 4% round. And through this round, we are allocating out 3 resources: the traditional 4% federal tax credits plus the tax exempt bonds, but also now the new state tax credit that comes along with this. So this was our first round doing this. And with that kind of background laid, I'll start diving in a bit more to the slides. So I want to start a little bit, as we have done with my last presentation, to start with setting the stage on what was our funding availability, and I'll explain the state credits in quite a bit of detail. We start here with the bond volume. So what we had available in bond volume is a combination of some previous lingering bond volume from past years, as well as the bond volume we received for calendar year 2023. And that got us to having available $195 million in tax exempt bonds. The 4% credits are actually unlimited. As long as we have bond volume to award out, we're allowed to award the 4% credits with those. So the issue with 4% credits is that the bond volume dries up, not that there's actually a credit cap. So you'll see there's no line item here on a limitation on 4% credits. For the state credits that we have been awarded through the 2022 legislation starts for calendar year 2023, or fiscal year 2023, I should say, and is a 5-year credit program. So we will receive $6 million a year for 5 years to administer this state program. What we ended up deciding to do through a lot of internal discussion within IHCDA was to go ahead and right now we are going to both recommend to the board today to fund the $6 million of 2023 credits, as well as to forward allocate the $6 million of 2024 credits. And the reason we're doing that is for a couple of things. One, this will allow us to better align our QAP policies. Right now, the policy, the scoring criteria, our allocation plan covers the years 23 and 24. So this allows us to close out that allocation plan and to put a new plan into place for 25 awards, which we would make next year. But also the big thing here is if we only awarded the $6 million of 2023 state credits, we would not have gotten anywhere near using up all of that $195 million in bond volume we had available. And we didn't want to just leave the bond volume on the table for no reason. So what we will be proposing today is a proposal that will utilize up, not all, but most of that $195 million in bond volume and award out the 2 years of state credits. And as we get into the recommendations, I'll explain a little bit more because there's actually gonna be a little bit more to this as well. This has been a complicated round, but we're really in it. It's gonna get a lot of funding. All right, so we received 25 applications through this round, requesting $36 million in federal 4% credits. Again, there's no technical limitation on that. We did, however, receive a request for $428 million in bonds against that $195 million we currently have available. And we had requests for $31.5 million in annual affordable workforce housing tax credits. With the 2 rounds combined, we have $12 million available. We also, through this round, received requests for $9.7 million in development fund loans as additional gap to make these deals work. So today we will be recommending 10 applications. And the way we're doing this, the way we established our review process for the state credits was we divided the state into 5 regions: Northwest, Northeast, Central, Southwest, and Southeast. And so we had said that for a certain year of state credits, we would fund the highest scoring application in each region. So since we're funding out 2 years worth of state credits, we are funding the 2 highest scoring applications from each of those regions to ensure some geographic distribution across the state. So what we'll be recommending here then is $11.8 million in federal 4% credits, $145 million of bond volume. We'll revisit bond volume here in a few minutes, and $11.8 million of that $12 million of affordable workforce housing state tax credits, as well as $3.5 million in development fund loans. Very similar, this timeline ran almost the same as the 9% round, just moved up by a few weeks. So we basically, our team was reviewing these simultaneously as we went along. So you'll see these applications came in at the start of July instead of the end of July, but ran through really that same August, September, October review process I previously described, where we went back and forth, clarified technical corrections with developers, et cetera. Same team, again, the professionalism of my team and their flexibility in running 2 simultaneous rounds. This was a big lift. So appreciative and proud of the team for everything they did. Specifically, I would recognize Alan Rakowski, who usually does these presentations, but is dealing with a family emergency. And he, he's the director who kind of ran this round and organized it. So just wanted to acknowledge him, even though he's not here today. All right, so without further ado, then let's jump into the recommendations. So we'll go through the 10 developments that are receiving recommendations today. Once again, these will be in alphabetical order. I will identify on each of these which of the regions they represent as well. So our first recommendation is for AHEPA 102 apartments. This is located in South Bend, which is part of the Northwest region. This is an age-restricted new construction development by AHEPA Affordable Housing Management Company, Inc. Second is Cambridge Estates 2 in Lafayette. This is also in the Northwest region, so just alphabetically, the first 2 you see happen to be the 2 in the Northwest. This is a multifamily rehab of an existing development being undertaken by EREG Housing Preservation, LLC. Next, we get to Charlestown Flats in Charlestown, which is in the Southeast region. This is a new construction multifamily development by Marion Development Group, LLC. Fourth will be Cherry Tree Court in Washington. This is in the Southwest region, a new construction multifamily development by Triple S Development, LLC. Fifth up is Dale Haven Estates in Evansville, also in the Southwest region. This is a rehabilitation development for multifamily housing by BH Affordable, LLP. That gets us to Edsel House in Fort Wayne, which is the Northeast region. This is an existing project being rehabilitated. It is age restricted by the Gene B. Glick Company. 837 Lofts in Shelbyville, that is in the Central region. This is a new construction multifamily development by TWG Development. Kilgore Place in Muncie, in the Northeast region, a multifamily new construction development, also by TWG. Residences at Sunrise Crossing, located in Madison, which is the Southeast region. This is a new construction multifamily development by Winterwood Development, LLC. I believe this is the last one. Turtle Creek North, located in Indianapolis. This is a combination of rehab of existing units as well as adding on additional new construction units here in the central region by Ardor Housing Corporation. Okay, so again, here is the map showing, you'll see here the spread of two in each of the 5 regions. And once again, a relatively decent spread of geographic distribution across the state. All right, but there's more to say about the bond round. So as you saw, we do still have some remaining bond volume available, and we do anticipate actually receiving more bond. So as we have worked diligently to look at all of our available bond volume, there is some we didn't allocate out to those 10 developments that we are officially recommending. We have some remaining bond volume that's left. And through conversations with IFA, while it's not 100% final yet, we do believe that a pretty strong amount of bond volume will be made available to IHCDA as unused 2023 volume from IFA. So what we are proposing to do, you'll see here, is kind of 2 different waiting lists. And the goal of these waiting lists will be to fund more developments, assuming that 1, additional resources are available, and 2, that these developers can do some reworking to their applications because we are essentially out of the state credit. So we will give them the opportunity to go back, rework their budgets. We will re-underwrite to make sure the deals are still financially feasible. So where we will start here is with these 7 developments, all passed our threshold review. They are qualified developments. They just did not score high enough in their region to be in that top 10 that we're officially recommending for funding. However, we are recommending these 7 developments in this order. So these are now, irrespective of region, just in order of score, the next 7 developments. And we would be asking the board today, and I'll give an official resolution, of course, in a moment, to ask us to have permission to have delegated authority to move forward with these 7 developments. What we are proposing is that there would be, this wait list would expire in the middle of February. So we would essentially now have 3 months to work with these developers to determine that they can still move the developments forward, allow them to tweak their budgets, get back with us and confirm that they can make these deals work with their 4% LIHTC. With the bond volume, they might have to slightly increase some of these requests, but they'll have to make it work without the state credits. So this is these are the 7 developments that we'll be putting on the official wait list. Again, these past threshold, we've just now got to make sure they can work without state credits. But we also still think that based on our conversations with IFA, we predict, again, not 100% certain, we'll know for sure probably around January. But we believe that even if we go and fund these 7 waitlist developments, that there will be lingering bond volume, and there are still 6 developments left that applied in the round. These 6 developments, for whatever reason, did not pass initial threshold review. There were some lingering items that they needed to resolve, and so we had to eliminate them from the initial scoring. In a normal round, we would say these are the types of developments that would just need to come back and reapply in the future. However, these are relatively minor threshold items that we believe these developers do have the ability to correct within a reasonable amount of time. So our third recommendation that we'll be making, the third resolution I'll ask for today, is approving us to, instead of denying these as usual, to allow us a couple of months to work with these developers to see if, 1, we can get their remaining threshold items corrected, and 2, if they can rework their budgets without the state credits. And if so, we would then actually bring these back to the board. We're not asking for delegated authority on these. We bring these back to the board probably around February to move forward with the funding. What we don't want to do, because we know we have already shut off, we've not made any new bond awards now for over a year because we had to shut that application off. We have qualified developers proposing good project concepts. And if we have more bond volume coming to us from IFA, we don't want to just sit on it. We want to get that pipeline moving again and get all these developments going. So that is what we are proposing. So again, I'll have separate resolutions on all these, but to summarize, 10 developments we are requesting immediate funding approval for, including the state credits. The second, table B, is those 7 that passed threshold that would just need to rework and show us they can still make the budget work without state credits. And then table C, these remaining 6, would be the developments that you would be allowing us the ability to go back, correct their errors, and then confirm that they could still work. Table B and table C would of course be contingent upon that additional money becoming available from IFA. All right, so with that, I will open up for any comments or questions, and then eventually I will have 3 separate resolutions related to this round.
Thanks, Matt. Board, any questions for Matt? Okay, Matt, we're ready for your first resolution.
All right, excellent. Thank you. We'll start with the first resolution. Resolved that the board approve the following: an aggregate award of 4% low-income housing tax credits in the amount of $11,861,625, an aggregate allocation of tax-exempt bond volume in the amount of $145,792,976, an aggregate allocation of state affordable workforce housing tax credits in the amount of $11,809,559, and an aggregate award of development fund in the amount of $3.5 million to the 10 developments listed in Table A, as more particularly identified in your development summary sheets, as recommended by staff.
Okay, great. Board, we have a resolution before us. I'll entertain a motion.
Mike Schotmeyer, move for approval.
All right, do we have a second?
Andy Place, second.
All right, Mr. Place, second. All right, I'll call the roll. Mr. Pascarella,
Aye.
Mr. Neal,
Aye.
Mr. Place,
Aye.
Mr. Schottmeyer,
Aye.
Mr. McGowan, and the chair votes aye. So hearing no opposed, motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Matt. You can go with your second.
Thank you. Resolved that the board approve the wait list presented as Table B and delegated authority to IHCDA's Deputy Executive Director and Chief Real Estate Development Officer to approve an allocation of 4% low-income housing tax credits, bond volume, affordable workforce housing tax credits, and development fund in amounts determined by IHCDA to be financially feasible until all remaining tax-exempt bond volume is awarded in the order established by the wait list until such time the wait list expires on February 16th, 2024, provided that the board is then informed of all awards and denials made as recommended by staff.
All right, thank you. We have a resolution before us. Entertain a motion.
Mike Neal, motion to approve.
All right, do we have a second?
Mark Pascarella, second.
All right, I'll call the roll. Mr. Pascarella.
Aye.
Mr. Neal,
Aye.
Mr. Place,
Aye.
Mr. Schottmeyer,
Aye.
Mr. McGowan, and chair votes aye. Seeing no one opposed, passed unanimously. So thank you, Matt, and you may move along with your third and final resolution.
Thank you. Resolved that the board approve the continued review of the projects that failed threshold presented in Table C to allow corrections to be made, and if additional bond volume becomes available from IFA, final funding recommendations to be made to the board by the February 22nd, 2024 board meeting for projects that are financially feasible without a state tax credit award.
Okay, thank you. We have a resolution before us. I'll entertain a motion on the third resolution.
Andy Place, motion for approval.
All right, thank you. A second.
Mike Neal, second.
Great, I'll call the roll. Mr. Pascarella,
Aye.
Mr. Neal,
Aye.
Mr. Place,
Aye.
Mr. Schottmeyer,
Aye.
Mr. McGowan, and the chair votes aye. So hearing no one opposed, motion passes unanimously. So thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Matt. And we'll welcome you back again to present the 2023 Rental Housing Tax Credit General Set Aside Board Memo.
Wonderful. It's great to be back. I'm sure you've missed me. All right. So we will move
Love
on
having
to
you
the general set aside here. So as I mentioned when I was talking through the first presentation today on our 9% tax credit program, each year through our qualified allocation plan, we hold 10% of that total per capita credits back for what we call the general set aside. And the idea of the general set aside is to recognize that from year to year, new emerging trends arise, new pilot programs we may want to try. So this allows us to keep 10% of our credits back each year, irrespective of the normal QAP scoring process, so that we can try to promote some new IHCDA priority each year. For 2023, those 10% of credits for the general set aside, we decided to hold back for what we believe is a very exciting initiative, which we kicked off actually last fall. And as we were identifying what are those emerging issues we want to deal with, we really saw the need to try and promote the ability of new developers to come to the table. And not just new developers, but specifically new developers who represent minority business enterprises, women business enterprises, or veteran-owned business enterprises. So the goal of this special initiative was to identify developers who have never developed a low-income housing tax credit before, who represents an MBE, WBE, or veteran-owned business, and to pair them then with an experienced tax credit developer who would serve as a consultant for them. So last fall, we put out a request for proposals asking for these developers to identify themselves, to propose a development concept, and to identify an experienced developer they would like to use as their consultant and mentor. And we were really, frankly, kind of blown away by the response. We had 20 developers who have never done a low-income housing tax credit development and meet that MBE, WBE, VBE definition, who came forward and said, we are excited about this initiative and we would love to participate. From there, we put together an internal selection committee. The Lieutenant Governor's Office also participated. We narrowed those 20 RFP responses down to 8 finalists, who we then invited to come in and give presentations to a selection committee. This selection committee, Jake was able to work with a partnership with Ivy Tech, and we identified some Ivy Tech students with lived experience. These were mainly single parents who have lived in affordable housing, and they provided us feedback on who we should be selecting through this initiative. So that selection committee included IHCDA staff, but also this committee of Ivy Tech students. Through that presentation process, earlier this year, in January, we announced the 2 final teams that we had selected. Once we selected those 2 final developers, we then established a deadline that by this end of September of this year, they needed to submit a full tax credit application to us. So the initial RFP did not include a full project budget, site plans, all that type of stuff that we review. So they then had, about 9 months or so to work with their consultants and to put together a proposal. So I'll quickly highlight who these 2 developers and what the developments are. The first that was selected, the emerging developer, is 238 Properties LLC, and they partnered as their experienced consultant and mentor with Real America Development. This team is proposing to create a development known as Anthony Grimes Apartments and Family Center. And part of what we asked them to do in the RFP was not just to propose just general housing units, but to also specifically address a challenge in their community. This team, 238 Properties, identified the challenge of dealing with families who are facing substance use disorders and addiction. So they are proposing to create new housing units that will help families who are dealing with substance use disorders here in Indianapolis by creating 34 new units, primarily for single parents and children who are dealing with substance use disorders. The second development, the emerging developer, was Chateau 14 Development LLC. They teamed up with Housing Matters as their experienced consultant, and they are proposing a development in the city of South Bend. The unique community challenge that they saw the need to address was not just housing, but also the need for up-and-coming small businesses and entrepreneurs to find affordable places to launch their businesses. So the concept here is kind of an entrepreneurial center where part of the first floor of this housing development will provide space for entrepreneurs to work and have kind of set up their shop. So that's an exciting proposal as well. So what we will be recommending today then is the approval to fund these 2 developments. As I mentioned, they were already selected through the RFP, but now have submitted fully vetted tax credit applications that we have put through our underwriting and threshold process. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions. I suspect, I don't want to steal Jake's thunder, but We'll also quickly mention, he'll probably talk more in his executive summary at the end, but IHCDA did actually just win a national award for this initiative, recognizing our efforts to bring new developers, particularly women developers and developers of color, to the table. And we're really excited to try to continue this work.
Good job. All right, board, any questions for Matt? If not, we're ready for your resolution, Matt.
Excellent, thank you. Staff respectfully requests that the board approve the following resolution. Resolved that the board approve an aggregate award of 9% low-income housing tax credits in an amount not to exceed $2,280,000 to Anthony Grimes Apartments and Family Center LP and the Monroe LP, and an aggregate amount of development fund loan not to exceed $1,500,000 to Anthony Grimes Apartments and Family Center LP and the Monroe LP, as more particularly identified in the development summary sheets as recommended by staff.
All right, thank you, Matt. Board, we have a resolution before us, and I will entertain a motion.
Mike Neal, motion to approve.
All right, do we have a second?
Andy Place second.
Thank you. I will call the roll. Mr. Pascarella,
Aye.
Mr. Neal,
Aye.
Mr. Place,
Aye.
Mr. Schottmeyer,
Aye.
Mr. McGowan, and the chair votes aye. Hearing no opposed, motion passes unanimously. So thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Ryan. Board, thank you for approving these 3 funding rounds. Before I sit down, although I will be back up in a few moments to do a couple more resolutions, I get a break. I did want to just put into perspective everything we just did. So over this last 30 minutes, however long I've been talking, and these last approvals, the board just approved 29 affordable housing developments representing 2,429 units and $557 million of IHCDA funding. This is the single largest day of funding IHCDA has ever done in its history, our biggest investment at one time in affordable housing. And then when we pause and think about the developments that may come to fruition through the wait list that you also approved, that would be up to 13 more developments, $463 million more. So we have just potentially approved over $1 billion in housing. So
That's great.
an amazing day for affordable housing.
Yes, great job. Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Matt. Please welcome Peter Nelson, who will present on the Home Investment Partnership American Rescue Plan Program Ivy Flats Board Memo.
Good morning, board.
Good morning.
I am very excited to be here this morning to recommend Ivy Flats. So just a little bit of background. I went into this at the August meeting about the Home American Rescue Plan, but these funds were approved through the American Rescue Plan. It provided $5 billion to assist individuals who are or are at risk of experiencing homelessness. Through that $5 billion, roughly, $54.5 million came specifically to IHCDA in home ARP funding. We are budgeting through our allocation plan that we had to put together for these funds about $32 million specifically for the construction of affordable rental housing. All of these housing units are targeting those populations experiencing or at risk of homelessness. So in order to allocate these roughly $32 million that we have in our home ARP action plan, we issued an RFP in July of 22 to select teams responsible for doing these developments. Through that selection process, we identified 10 teams that would be eligible to apply for this funding, and eligible teams could also apply for our National Housing Trust funds, Development Fund, and as well as some home ARP nonprofit operating assistance that we set aside in our action plan as well. And those funds are specifically for the operation of the nonprofit as they do this great work. So this application is the second of the 10 teams to submit for a home ARP funding. It is a total development cost of just over $7.3 million. They are requesting $4 million in the home ARP funds, $3 million in the National Housing Trust Fund, $132,000 in our development fund, This project is being done by Housing Opportunities, Inc. out of Valparaiso. They're proposing the adaptive reuse of a building that was originally a Coca-Cola bottling facility in LaPorte. I believe the most recent use is an administrative building for the local school corporation. I know this received a lot of local support. The mayor worked with this team pretty significantly to identify the site and building and make sure that it was secured for this purpose. This project is creating 16 units of permanent supportive housing, 1 and 2 bedroom units for individuals and families experiencing homelessness. And this site is located within a mile of many local amenities, including a grocery store, local parks, a pharmacy, a library, and a YMCA. So a lot of those amenities that will really benefit the residents. They don't have to travel too far for. This concept was developed by this team, Housing Opportunities, Inc., during the 2022 Indiana Supportive Housing Institute. And they are also requesting a $50,000 Home ARP nonprofit operating assistance award. So I will pause there and say we are happy to make those recommendations, but take any questions the board might have.
Thank you, Peter. Any questions from the board? Hearing none, Peter, we're ready for your resolution.
Thank you. Staff respectfully requests the board approve the following resolution. Resolved that the board approve awarding $4 million of Home ARP funds in the form of a grant, $3 million of National Housing Trust Fund in the form of a grant, $132,000 of development fund in the form of a loan, and $50,000 in Home ARP non-operating, $50,000 in Home ARP nonprofit operating assistance to Housing Opportunities, Inc. for Ivy Flats as recommended by staff.
Thank you, Peter. Board, we have a resolution before us. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
And do we have a second?
Andy Place second.
All right, I'll call the roll. Mr. Pascarella?
Aye.
Mr. Neal?
Aye.
Mr. Place?
Aye.
Mr. Schottmeyer?
Aye.
Mr. McGowan? And chair votes aye. Hearing no opposed, motion passed unanimously. So thank you, sir. And we'll welcome back our friend, Matt Rayburn, who will present the project-based voucher award for supportive housing Ivy Tech Flats. Welcome back.
Excellent. Thank you, board. So you may have seen over the last couple of months, Peter and I have done this song and dance a couple of times, and this will continue as Peter awards all 10 of those Home ARP developments. Because all 10 of the developments we will be funding through the Home ARP program are specifically supportive housing for persons experiencing homelessness, we know the reality is many of these tenants at the time they move into the development are going to be extremely low income or may have zero income at the time of admission. Because of that, in our Home ARP allocation plan, as we worked with HUD to get those funds, we agreed that we would bring project-based rental assistance to the table to ensure that that rent can be paid so that the owner can operate the project, but knowing that the tenants, at least at time of admission, would have very little ability to pay their rent. So for all these developments over time, as Peter brings the 10 Home ARP one at a time, as they come in, each time then I'll be getting up afterwards to make a recommendation that we approve the rental assistance. So in this case, all 100% of the units, 16 out of 16 units at Ivy Flats, as Peter just explained, are supportive housing for persons experiencing homelessness. So we are recommending today an approval of a project-based voucher rental assistance contract through the project-based voucher program for all 16 units. That is 10 one-bedroom vouchers, 6 two-bedroom vouchers at the LaPorte County fair market rent level. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
All right, great. Thanks, Matt. Any questions from the board? Hearing none. Matt, we're ready for your resolution.
Excellent, thank you. Staff respectfully requests the board approve the following resolution. Resolved that the board approve an award of 16 project-based vouchers for Housing Opportunities, Inc. for Ivy Lane for a period of 20 years based on the annual fair market rents for LaPorte County as recommended by staff.
All right, great. Board, we have a resolution before us and I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve. Mark Pascarella.
And do we have a second?
Mike Neal, second.
All right, I'll call the roll. Mr. Pascarella?
Aye.
Mr. Neal,
Aye.
Mr. Place,
Aye.
Mr. Schottenmeier,
Aye.
Mr. McGowan. And the chair votes aye. Hearing no opposed, motion passes unanimously. So thank you.
Thank
Matt.
you. All right, I have one last today.
All right. So yes, we'll welcome Matt to present the section 811, 811 project rental assistance, House of Core Board memo.
Wonderful, thank you. So going back to that 9% tax credit round, House of Core was one of the developments you just approved a few minutes ago. As a reminder, that is a supportive housing development in the city of Bloomington. So this supportive housing development is using an integrated model. 25% of their units will be supportive housing for persons experiencing homelessness. The other 75% are just general affordable housing units. Because they are doing an integrated model, this fits the definition for HUD's Section 811 Project Rental Assistance Program. And that is a competitive program that we submitted a funding application to HUD a couple of years ago. We were actually the only applicant in that year's funding that received their full funding request. And through this program over time, we're eventually going to be able to fund about 180 units of project-based rental assistance. And under the 811 regulations, those units have to house what HUD calls non-elderly disabled persons. So these are persons between the age of 18 to 62 with a disability who are in need of rental assistance. So the development team at House of Core has agreed to have 25% of their units, those supportive housing units in their project, serve that population of non-elderly disabled persons. Therefore, today we are recommending to put a 20-year rental assistance contract onto the units there. This will be for 9 one-bedroom units based on fair market rents in the Bloomington market. And I would be happy to answer any questions.
Great, thanks, Matt. Board, any questions for Matt?
That 20 years seems like a long time. Is that customary?
It is. So the 20 years is really tied to a couple of things. So on the previous award for Ivy Flats, the 20-year rental assistance contract is to align with the home ARP period of affordability. So long-term affordability on the development, which includes those supportive housing requirements. In this case, for the 811 on House of Core, it doesn't actually align with the affordability period. The tax credit affordability period on House of Core is going to be 40 years. The HUD standard for Section 811 is that HUD says the contract for an 811 development starts at 20 years with extension opportunity. So we are just using the HUD standard 20-year rental assistance contract. But through that, that means the developer has committed that at least for the first 20 years of this project's 40-year life, that these 9 units will be dedicated as supportive housing for non-elderly disabled persons.
So if I can follow on that.
Yeah.
It's in here that calculated on the 9 units, $979. How do you account for inflation over that 20-year period?
Yes, that's a good question. So this is what we are estimating, and this won't be entirely accurate because by the time they're placed in service, the fair market rent will have gone up. We are using this for demonstration purposes. If it were to open now, this is what the base rent would be, is the $979. So a couple things there. So on a project, so it's a little different here with the 811 project, the initial rent at the time of initial lease up is set at the fair market rent that HUD publishes for the county. So in Monroe County right now, for a 1-bedroom unit, fair market rent is $979. Now the reality is, under the Section 811 program, the tenant is required to pay 30% of their income towards rent, and the subsidy pays the rest. So unless a tenant is truly zero income, they're not getting the full $979 in rental assistance. This is kind of a worst case scenario amount of rental assistance that the project would receive. More likely, they're going to have some sources of income. They'll pay a portion of rent, and the difference between what they can pay and the $979 is what the program would pay. So every individual household is going to have a different amount of rental assistance based on their specific income. Over time, what happens then, to address the question of kind of increases, the $979 would be the base or whatever the fair market rent is at the time they actually open. And then each year, projects that are funded through what HUD calls its multifamily division, which includes Section 811, HUD at the federal level will release for every state in the country an operating cost adjustment factor, or OCAF, for that state. That's based on their estimation of inflation and statewide costs. So every year HUD will put out a number for the state of Indiana and say, if you are a HUD multifamily rental assistance project, your rents are going up by X%, and that increase would happen on the anniversary date of the contract. So they would, yes, every year get something. I believe the OCAF last few years has been somewhere around like 2 to 3%.
Just for the public, the Fed reimburses us for all this, even with the adjustments made by HUD.
Yes, yeah. So this is all the rental assistance for both the previous award for project-based vouchers and this one for 811. These are all federal HUD dollars that we either receive just directly as a PHA, or in this case that we competitively sought. So there's no IHCDA money going into this, no general fund. This is all direct federal money we draw from HUD to make these payments.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions for Matt? Hearing none, we're ready for your resolution.
All right, thank you. My final resolution of the day. Resolved that the board approve an award of 9 units of Section 811 project rental assistance to Bryn Shore Development LLC for House of Core for a period of 20 years with initial rent set at the fair market rent and annual rent adjustments based on the HUD published operating cost adjustment factor as recommended by staff.
All right, board, we have a motion, our resolution before us. I'll entertain a motion.
Mike Schotmeyer, move for approval.
Andy Place second.
In a second. All right, I'll call the roll. Mr. Pascarella,
Aye.
Mr. Neal,
Aye.
Mr. Place,
Aye.
Mr. Schotmeyer,
Aye.
Mr. McGowan. Chair votes aye. So hearing no opposed, motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next we'll welcome Zach Gross, who will present the Indiana Housing First Program Award Recommendation Board Memo.
Welcome. Thank you. I have a few things for you today. Hopefully I'm not up here as long as Matt. The first thing that I have is the Indiana Housing First Program Award recommendation. So the Indiana Housing First Program is a state-funded program that provides rental assistance and supportive services to individuals and families with serious and persistent mental illness, a chronic chemical addiction, or both co-occurring, who are also facing a housing crisis. So that could be individuals who are experiencing homelessness and are staying in a shelter or a place not meant for human habitation, or individuals who are exiting a residential treatment facility and do not have anywhere else to go upon exit. So this program offers services in the form of rental assistance and supportive services for up to 2 years. We award that to nonprofit organizations, public housing agencies, units of local government annually through an RFQ process. So we released the RFQ this year on September 6th, and responses were due on October 9th. We received 7 total responses requesting 1.99 million, and we have just over $1 million available for allocation. So we scored all of these using competitive scoring metrics that are outlined in the RFQ. And we are recommending awards to the 4 organizations in Table A. 2 of those are at a reduced amount based on the scoring. They have similar profiles and are both returning applicants and who have operated this before. So we are recommending that both of the 2 receive the same award, and then 2 would be at the maximum award. There are 3 that we are not able to recommend for funding due to scoring and funding availability. Luckily, all of the awards that we had that would be set to expire this year are recommended for funding, and the ones that are not recommended are, we have 1 new applicant and then 2 that received awards last year, so they still have an active grant because the award terms are 30 months. With that, I'll pause for questions.
All right, board, any questions for Zach? Hearing none, we're ready for your resolution.
Staff respectfully requests that the board approve the following resolution. Resolved that the board approve an aggregate award of Indiana Housing First Program funding in the amount of $1 million to the 4 organizations set forth in Table A as recommended by staff.
All right, board, we have a resolution before us. I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve, Mike Neal.
Second, Mike Schotmeyer.
All right, and I'll call the roll. Mr. Pascarella,
Aye.
Mr. Neal,
Aye.
Mr. Place,
Aye.
Mr. Schotmeyer,
Aye.
Mr. McGowan, and the chair votes aye. Hearing no opposed, motion passes unanimously. So thank you, Zach.
Thank you. Okay, and then the next recommendation I have is for the home tenant-based rental assistance program. I have two resolutions here because we are also recommending awarding funds for support services from the home ARP program. So the home tenant-based rental assistance is a component of the home program that can provide direct rental assistance to low-income households. That rental assistance can also cover, or those funds can also help with utility deposits, security deposits, and some utility costs. So this program, IHCDA has designed so that it serves eligible households who are formerly incarcerated. So to be eligible for the program, households have to be exiting incarceration within 6 months and not have resources upon exit for housing and need additional help for stability, or individuals who are currently experiencing homelessness who have been incarcerated at some time in the past. So those funds are, this program is very helpful for those individuals, but there are no support services dollars, which is a really necessary component for serving this population that has higher service needs. So luckily, we were in the award for our home ARP program, their supportive services funds through that program. And we were able to allocate some of those funds to pair with the home tenant-based rental assistance program so that those households can receive some additional supportive services, including case management, childcare, education, job training, employment assistance, housing search and counseling, and several other things. There's a pretty expansive list of services. So we released an RFQ for this on September 6th and responses were due on October 9th. Respondents could select up to, or request up to $300,000 in home TBRA funds and had the option to request an additional $100,000 in home ARP supportive services funds. And we received 4 responses that request both funding. And luckily, we had enough funding to recommend awards to all applicants. All of these applicants are returning, have operated this program in the past and have been successful. So we're recommending funding the applicants outlined in Table A for home TBRA funds, and then Table B for the home ARP supportive services funds. I'll pause for questions.
All right, thank you, Zach. Any questions from the board? Hearing none, we're ready for your first resolution.
Staff respectfully requests that the board approve the following resolution. Resolved that the board approve an aggregate award of home tenant-based rental assistance funding in the amount of $1,200,000 to the 4 organizations set forth in Table A as recommended by staff.
Okay, board, we have a resolution before us. I'll entertain a motion.
Mike Schotmeyer, proud to move for approval on this one. Large component of this is going to Southwest Indiana, Vincennes and Evansville, and Gibson County in our region. So very pleased to see this. And I witness it every day working in downtown Evansville. So this is really important. I'm grateful for what you guys are doing. So I move for approval.
Great, thank you. Do we have a second?
Mark Pascarella, second.
All right, I'll call the roll. Mr. Pascarella,
Aye.
Mr. Neal,
Aye.
Mr. Place,
Aye.
Mr. Schotmeyer,
Aye.
Mr. McGowan. Chair votes aye. So hearing no opposed, motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Zach. And you have one more resolution?
Yes. Staff respectfully requests the board approve the following resolution. Resolved that the board approve an aggregate award of Home American Rescue Plan supportive services funding in the amount of $400,000 to the 4 organizations set forth in Table B as recommended by staff.
Okay, board, we have a resolution before us. Entertain a motion.
Mike Schotmeyer, move for approval.
First, do we have your second?
Mark Pascarella, second.
All right, great. I'll call the roll. Mr. Pascarella,
Aye.
Mr. Neal,
Aye.
Mr. Place,
Aye.
Mr. Schotmeyer,
Aye.
Mr. McGowan, and the chair votes aye. No, hearing no opposed, motion passes unanimously. So thank you, Zach.
Thank you.
Well, now I'm honored to turn it over to Executive Director Jacob Sipe. for his executive update.
All right, thank you, Chairman Clem. First, I want to congratulate one of our board members, Andy Place, for receiving the Spirit of Habitat Award from the Habitat for Humanity of St. Joseph County. So Andy, congratulations on that award. So,
Great.
Thank you very much. Very proud to receive it.
Second, IHCDA was also recognized, as Matt said, for our innovative XBE Emerging Developer Initiative that we launched. I'm really proud that our board approved the 2 awards to both of those developers. Really exciting work that we did. Dave is holding up that award right there. So thank you. The team put a lot of great work into it. And not only was it innovative, obviously it's also generating and developing units. But I am also proud of the fact that we have created a lot of conversation around the continuation of supporting our XBE emerging developers across our state in developing housing, whether that be market rate or affordable housing. And so just really proud of what conversations we have created and the excitement that we have created around our state and being supportive of that for new developers to get into the space of affordable housing. So
Very good job.
yep. So with that, we didn't stop. This summer, it was announced that there was a initiative released by HUD called Pathways to Removing Obstacles for Housing, or Pro-Housing. And so HUD released an RFP announcing that they would make 20 awards, $10 million to organizations, local units of governments or states under a competitive application process. So IHCDA took the lead on submitting an application for pro-housing. One piece of that is actually to continue to build out and to make improvements to the Indiana Housing Dashboard, which is a great resource for communities and not-for-profits and developers to use to look at housing data across our state. And in a matter of seconds, you can really just pull a housing needs assessment. That's about 86 pages from that. But we want to continue to build on that success. So we have the dashboard. We have success also partnering with some of our universities across our state. And so we've proposed to partner with a few of our universities to go into some of our communities, smaller communities that have been underserved, to help them with developing a housing action plan. And so that's another piece of this, is to work with local communities in developing housing action plans for them. The third component of this is to actually develop housing and to support the continuation of emerging XBE developers across our state. And so we want to continue to do that. So our proposal of portion of that $10 million will be to go to support new affordable housing under the umbrella of XBE emerging developers. So we're really excited to continue that effort under our pro-housing proposal. So we'll know hopefully in the first or the second quarter of 2024 whether or not we were one of the 20 applicants that were approved. So more to come on that one. The other application that we worked really hard on was in our state, which aligned under our mission. There was an initiative under the Environmental Protection Agency, released $7 billion for an initiative called Solar for All. And that was to target low-income households to utilize solar for their energy source and to reduce the energy burden on those households. So IHCDA worked closely with the Indiana Department of Energy Development to partner with them to work to submit an application. IHCDA was the lead applicant on that and pulled that together. We did request $250 million to implement a Solar for All initiative here in Indiana, to be the lead on that. This would be a 5-year program, and our proposal would cover all 92 counties across our state. And under that proposal, we really broke it down into 4 buckets of how we plan to utilize the Solar for All initiative. Number 1 would be to support homeowners who through their rooftop solar. So a lot of initiatives that we have for our homeownership programs would qualify
for a homeowner rooftop solar installation. So there's that piece of it on the home ownership side. We also proposed to support multifamily and to create a revolving renewable solar fund in Indiana to support our multifamily properties across our state, and specifically related to coming out of the QAP, out of the Qualified Allocation Plan, to support multifamily developments using renewable energy, specifically solar. So we would create a revolving loan fund with that. We would also be open to piloting what's called a community solar initiative. This is where these are usually ground solar installations where the benefit goes to those that engage into a subscription model within their community. And so a community solar is another issue or another item that we had proposed within that. That would be a pilot. I don't know if that's ever been done in our state, but we're open to continuing to explore working with some of our utility companies across our state to see if that was something that could be done. And the fourth component that we have proposed within the Solar for All application is a workforce development for the trades of installing solar on rooftop or on the ground. So supporting the trade industry on the electrical side for workforce development on solar. So our application was submitted back in October. We've already received some clarification questions from EPA, which is great, knowing that they're reviewing our application. And so they're going to make the award announcements in July of 2024 is what we've been informed. So we have some time here. If we are fortunate, they do plan to make one award per state. So we know we're not the only application that went in to support 92 counties in Indiana. We are aware that there are other applications that were also submitted to cover Indiana. So it is a competitive application, but if we are fortunate, we would have 1 year to plan, to do some planning for that, in addition to the 5 years. So we'd have 5 years to plan and then 4 years to implement. Hopefully we don't use off a full year to plan, but we had a tremendous amount of support for our application and opportunities for us to partner with a variety of different organizations if we're fortunate to get these dollars. So eligible households would have to be at or below 80% of the area median income. And we would have to demonstrate a 20% energy cost savings with the installation. So that's the other application that we submitted. So we submitted 2 applications here in the last, I would say 30 days, Solar for All, and then the pro housing application as well. So other thing I want to mention in terms of just staffing, David Stewart has moved to just being our board counsel for IHC's board of directors. So he is dedicated just to the board. He's also taking the lead on our investigations as well. So we have some, those things happen every once in a while where we need to go into a little bit more deeper on some types of investigations. So Dave, that is an area, he has a lot of expertise in that area. So Dave is going to be our board counsel investigations officer. So Jennifer Phillips, who's here, there you are, Jennifer. You want to wave real quick for the board to see. Jennifer is going to transition into our interim general counsel. I'm proud that Jennifer joined IHCDA as an interim in 2018. And now she's she's been with IHCDA full time since 2019 and served in a lot of different roles within the agency, helping support our legal efforts. So she is going to be now our interim general counsel. So just want to congratulate both of them for their work and their new roles within the agency. So just real quick, 2 more items. There is every year the board of director members and their designees are required to fill out a conflict of interest individual disclosure statement. And so this fillable document is going to be sent to board members from Dave here today. So you look for that in your inbox. He'll be emailing you the form to fill out on the disclosure statement. So that's coming your way here probably within the next few hours or so. So our next board meeting is going to be here at IHCDA on the 9th floor. So we won't be in this big room. We're not expecting a big crowd or a historic event like we did today, but that'll be on December 21st at 10 a.m. Eastern on the 9th floor in IHCA's office. So Hopefully, starting in 2024, when we leave here and you look outside, you look out the front there, you'll see the big glass. That is IHCDA's new training center that's being built out. And that's where we will begin to hold our board meetings once that space becomes available to us and is completed. So our board meetings will be moving over to here on the 8th floor, but just outside the hallway there. So that'll be our new training center that we're really proud that we're going to be able to have for our partners across who come to Indianapolis to have trainings. So hopefully we can also have trainings across our state as well. So we want to make sure we get out to our communities. So with that, Chairman, that's my update for November. So
Thank you, sir. Is there any other business before the board?
I have a couple items, if you don't mind.
Sure.
First item is, as Jake mentioned about the documents, I would like you to kind of make sure that your bosses also sign those. Because a lot of times the designees will sign, but it's kind of hard to get to the other level. So if you could ensure, and they are coming directly to them too. I know that a lot of times we go through different people to get to them, but if you could just mention that, that'd be great. Plus, we get audited on that. And as you know, Mark, our audits have been spotless.
Right.
And that's one of the things that they audit us on, make sure that our board is properly, has all the paperwork in order. So that's one of them. Secondly, we have a document that has to be signed, but just by Jake and by the chair, and that's the minutes from last time. And so if you could just hang around for a minute or two, get that signed, that'd be great.
Sure.
So, thank you. I think it worked out very well today. Thank everyone for coming. And we're happy to see that our video stuff worked out well. We've been spending a lot of time and effort on that. So, I want to thank our IT department, for all the hard work they did on that too. So, if you feel it. So, thank you.
Great job. Thank you. Any other business?
Move for adjournment.
All right. Hearing no other business, this meeting is adjourned.